Naomi Carter stood in the checkout line at Harrell's grocery, smoothing crumpled bills with shaky fingers, already knowing she was $4 short for her son's formula, while strangers whispered judgments, unaware that a sharply dressed millionaire, 3 spots back, watched silently. Neither Naomi nor the man behind her realized this humiliating moment. Her counting coins under fluorescent lights would unravel a connection so unlikely and tangled, it would force them both to wonder if some encounters are simply destined. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from. And if stories like this pull you in, make sure you're subscribed. The harsh buzz of Harrell's ceiling lights washed over crowded aisles as Saturday shoppers nudged overloaded carts. Naomi waited in lane 6, gripping a can of infant formula like it was breakable. At 33, she'd learned to keep her face neutral while panic screamed in her chest. Her 3-year-old son, Micah, shifted restlessly on her hip, small fingers tugging at the frayed sleeve of her faded denim jacket. She adjusted his weight, shoulders aching from the double shift she'd worked the night before. Micah gave a soft, raspy whine, and Naomi bounced him gently, murmuring that everything would be okay. She wasn't sure she believed it. As the cashier rang up the customer ahead, Naomi counted her cash again, 5 worn singles, 3 quarters, 2 dimes, and a scarred penny that looked older than she was. The formula cost $18.79. She had $14.92. No matter how frantically she redid the math in her head, the numbers refused to budge. Her chest tightened as the line inched forward, carrying her toward a familiar, dreaded moment, one she'd survived too many times already. "Next, please," the cashier called, voice rough with fatigue from hours on her feet. Naomi stepped forward, setting the formula on the conveyor with exaggerated care, then settled Micah more firmly on her hip, straightening his little jacket. Micah coughed, a deep, rattling sound that didn't sound like a simple cold, and Naomi's heart clenched. That cough had worsened all week. The middle-aged cashier, gray hair twisted into a severe bun, scanned the can. The register beeped. $18.79, she said flatly. Naomi swallowed, mouth suddenly dry. She spread her crumpled bills across the counter, lining them up as though neatness might change their value. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely audible. "I don't have enough. I thought it would cover it." The cashier's expression didn't shift, but she sighed softly. "How much do you got?" Naomi's cheeks burned. $14.92. "You're about $4 short, sweetheart." Naomi nodded, feeling the sting of humiliation prickle the back of her neck. She sensed eyes on her, a hot weight between her shoulder blades, strangers who knew nothing about her but had already decided everything. "It's okay, I'll just put it back," she said, voice shaking, despite her effort to sound composed. Behind her, a woman's voice sliced through the air, sharp and icy. "Some people shouldn't have kids if they can't afford them." Another voice followed, quieter but just as cruel. "That's what happens when you don't plan ahead." Naomi forced herself not to flinch, fingers curling around the can. She stared at the counter, refusing to look at the faces behind those words. Tears would only confirm their assumptions. She'd learned that long ago. Keep your head down, survive the moment. That was her rule. 3 places back in line stood Logan Hayes, a white man in his early 40s, crisp in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Naomi's monthly rent. His 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, clutched his hand, her stuffed fox squeezed against a pink puffer coat. Logan had been half lost in an email on his phone, until the harsh comment snapped his attention up. He watched Naomi with growing discomfort. The young black woman at the register held herself rigid, shoulders square, hands trembling as she lifted the can. Micah's cough tore the air again, that same hollow sound Logan recognized too well. His late wife had coughed like that near the end. Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Dad, why is that lady sad?" "Shh, bug," he murmured, eyes never leaving the scene. Naomi lifted the formula, ready to return it, when Logan heard himself speak before he could hesitate. "Excuse me, I'll cover the difference." Heads turned, curiosity sharpening the air. Naomi froze, eyes widening, as she saw the man in the expensive suit step forward. Hope flickered, then slammed shut behind years of hard-earned pride. "Thank you," she said carefully, "but no, I can't accept." "It's just a few dollars," he answered, already reaching for his wallet. "Please, let me help." Her jaw tightened. She knew exactly what he saw, a charity case, another struggling mother to be rescued for a feel-good story. "I appreciate it," she said, steel creeping into her tone, "but I'll handle it." The cashier glanced between them, clearly uneasy. "Ma'am, if he wants to—" "I said no," Naomi cut in, voice sharper now. Shame and frustration. "Tangling." She pulled the formula completely off the counter. "I'm sorry for holding everyone up." With Micah balanced on her hip, she turned and walked away, legs unsteady but posture straight, weaving through aisles toward the exit as conversation slowly resumed behind her. Logan stood there, wallet in hand, feeling like he'd somehow made everything worse instead of better. The cashier resumed scanning his groceries. Sophie looked up at him, blue eyes puzzled. "Why didn't she want your help, Dad?" He searched for a simple answer a child could understand. "Sometimes people need to feel strong," he said quietly. "Sometimes help doesn't feel like help at all." Outside, the early evening air had turned sharp and cold. Naomi waited beneath a flickering streetlight at the bus stop, rocking Micah as his coughs became more frequent. She checked the transit app on her cracked phone. The bus was 20 minutes late, 20 extra minutes in the cold with a sick child. "It's okay, buddy," she whispered into his tight curls. "We'll figure this out, we always do." Micah whimpered, his forehead hot against her collarbone. Naomi blinked back tears. She had just enough set aside for rent this month. A free clinic opened Monday. If she could just get him through the weekend, they might be okay. They had to be. Back in the parking lot, Logan loaded groceries into his Mercedes SUV. Sophie buckled safely in her booster seat. He was about to pull out when he patted his pocket and realized his wallet was missing. "Hang on, Soph, I think I left something." Jogging back inside, he retrieved the wallet from the cashier, who'd tucked it safely under the register. On his way out, he spotted Naomi still at the bus stop, bracing Micah against the wind. He hesitated. His first attempt at helping had gone badly, but watching her shiver in the growing darkness twisted something deep in his chest. He approached slowly, careful not to crowd her. "Bus running late?" he asked casually. Naomi looked over, recognition tightening her features into polite distance. "Yeah, should be here." "Can I give you a ride?" he asked. "No strings, just a lift." She shook her head, lips curving into a small, tired smile that never reached her eyes. "Thank you, but we'll wait, really." Logan nodded, accepting it. "All right, stay warm." He turned to go, then paused. "For what it's worth, you're doing great. Being a parent is hard enough without strangers making it harder." Something softened in Naomi's expression. "Thanks for saying that." Logan walked back to his car. Sophie pressed her face against the glass, watching Naomi and Micah as they waited in the cold. As Logan pulled away, Sophie's earlier question echoed, "Why didn't you help her?" The truth was, he had tried and failed. Maybe help only mattered when it came in a form someone could actually bear to accept. The drive home wound 20 minutes through quiet, tree-lined streets. Logan's house sat behind wrought iron gates, a sprawling colonial with manicured hedges and warm light glowing in nearly every window. Inside, he carried Sophie to the kitchen, where Carmen, their housekeeper, had dinner. Ready! He moved through their nightly routine, dinner, bath time, Sophie's favorite story, yet his mind kept replaying the grocery store, Naomi's shaking hands, the fierce pride in her eyes, Micah's awful cough echoing a sound he'd hoped never to hear again. Later, in his home office, Logan stared out at the glittering city lights. A framed photo of his late wife, Julia, sat on his desk, capturing her bright smile from before illness hollowed her cheeks. Money hadn't saved her. Nothing had. He'd had every advantage. Specialists, trials, treatments, and still lost her. What was the point of wealth if he couldn't stop suffering with it? Yet Naomi didn't want his money. She wanted something he couldn't easily give, respect without pity, acknowledgement without strings. Across town, Naomi finally reached her third-floor walk-up, paint peeling along the stairwell, the elevator out again. She hauled Micah and her sagging backpack up the stairs, lungs burning, and stepped into their cramped apartment that smelled faintly of bleach and damp plaster. She mixed the last of the formula powder with water, stretching it by adding a little extra. Micah drank greedily, feverish body trembling with occasional coughs. Naomi rocked him in the sagging armchair, one of the few salvageable pieces of furniture they owned. Overhead, water dripped from a spreading brown stain into a plastic bowl, each plunk a reminder of everything she couldn't control. "Just one more night, baby," she whispered. "Get through tonight, and I'll figure something out, I promise." She held Micah until his breathing evened into sleep, though those rattling coughs still punctuated the quiet. Rain began to patter against the windows, then seep through more cracks in the ceiling, adding new drips to the bowl's steady rhythm. Naomi closed her eyes, one hand on her son's back, counting each small breath like a tiny answered prayer. She thought of the man at the store, his clean lines and effortless offer of help, and the distance between their worlds. People like him would never truly understand what it meant to calculate pennies, to choose between utilities and medicine, to wear pride like armor because it was the only thing poverty couldn't strip away. She didn't resent him, not exactly. She just wished he'd understood why she'd had to say no. As the night deepened and rain intensified, Naomi did what she'd done every evening since her husband died overseas before Micah was born. She endured. One breath, one impossible choice. 3 days passed before life pushed them together again. Naomi stretched the formula with borrowed cash, $20 from a neighbor who understood hard times without asking questions. Monday's pale sunlight finally broke through clouds as she headed to her day job. She'd spent 8 months working at Bright Horizons Community Daycare as a cleaner, scrubbing floors before the kids arrived, sanitizing toys, staying late to reset classrooms. The pay wasn't good, but it came with the one benefit she couldn't live without. Childcare for Micah. The director, Ms. Reynolds, had quietly bent the rules, letting Micah attend for free, having seen something familiar in Naomi's strained smile. Naomi was mopping the hallway when excited voices rose from the main playroom, the pitch of staff and children buzzing. She glanced at the posted schedule and felt her stomach dip. Today was the big sponsorship visit. A tech company donating new books, tablets, and money for the worn-down playground. The center had been buzzing about it for weeks. Naomi had forgotten. Between Micah's worsening cough and her night shifts at the elder care home, everything blurred. Running on 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep most days, she kept working, eyes down. Then a familiar male voice drifted from the director's office, making her freeze. "This is a wonderful program," Logan was saying. "My daughter Sophie's been asking for more friends her age, and this place seems perfect." He stood in the doorway, shaking Ms. Reynolds' hand. Every inch the polished executive in a navy suit. Sophie bounced beside him, gaze locked on the colorful play area. Ms. Reynolds glowed with gratitude. "We're incredibly thankful for your company's support, Mr. Hayes. Our kids will benefit so much." Naomi tried to slip down a side hall before he noticed, but Sophie's bright voice rang out. "Dad, look! It's the lady from the store!" Logan's head turned, eyes finding Naomi instantly. Recognition flashed, followed by concern. Naomi's cheeks burned as she tightened her grip on the mop handle. "Hello," Logan said, voice careful and neutral. "Hi," Naomi replied, forcing herself to meet his gaze before looking away. She could feel Ms. Reynolds' curious attention ping-ponging between them. "You two know each other?" the director asked. "We've met," Logan answered smoothly, offering no details. Naomi silently thanked him for that mercy. Sophie had already darted away, drawn to Micah, who was stacking blocks in the toddler corner. "Hi, I'm Sophie. What's your name?" she chirped. Micah glanced up shyly, eyes slightly glassy from his lingering fever. "Micah," he whispered. Sophie thrust her stuffed fox forward. "This is Mr. Foxington. He loves building towers." Despite not feeling well, Micah's face brightened, and soon both kids were giggling. They built crooked structures that collapsed in dramatic crashes, sending them into fits of laughter. Naomi watched from the hallway, heart aching and swelling at once. Micah rarely got to be just a carefree preschooler. Their days were dominated by medicine and worry. "Ms. Carter, you can take your break now," Ms. Reynolds called. "The morning rush is done and the kids are all set." Naomi nodded, tucking the mop away and heading toward the cramped staff room. Body heavy with fatigue. She'd just poured herself a cup of bitter coffee when Logan stepped into the doorway. Her fist tightened around the paper cup. "I'm not trying to intrude," he said, palms up in a peace offering. "I wanted to apologize for the other day. I didn't mean to make things harder." Naomi sipped the coffee, buying time. "You don't have to apologize. You were kind. I just couldn't accept." Logan nodded. "I get it, more than you know. Those people in line, they were wrong." "Completely," he added. Something in his tone made her really look at him. Past the suit, past the expensive haircut, there was regret there, not pity. That mattered. "You learn to tune people out," she said. "Eventually their opinions become background noise." "You shouldn't have to learn that," he replied. "Maybe, but that's how it is." Their kids' laughter echoed from down the hall. "Your company's doing something good here," Naomi added quietly. "These kids need every break they can get." Logan followed her gaze, watching Sophie and Micah side by side. "They clicked fast," he said. "Sophie doesn't attach to just anyone. Your son must be pretty special." Pride softened Naomi's features. "He is." She shifted, accidentally revealing a bandage on her wrist. Logan's eyes flicked to it, You hurt? Just a burn from work, she said, tugging her sleeve down. My other job, night shift as a nursing aide at Riverside Home. Hot soup met clumsy hand. The soup won. You work here days and they're nights? He asked, frowning. I do what I have to, she answered, tone final. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, expression hardening. What do you mean the funds are gone? He snapped quietly into the call. Naomi couldn't hear the rest, but his clenched jaw and curled fist said enough. When he returned, his professional mask was back on, though tension radiated from his shoulders. Problem? She asked before she could stop herself. One of my executives thought company money was a personal playground, he muttered. Funds earmarked for projects like this one. He gestured around. I've got to fix it. But before I go, if you ever need anything, really, ask. Naomi almost laughed at the idea. Asking him for anything. But his anger over stolen charity funds complicated her impression of him. Maybe he actually cared about more than writing big checks and snapping photos for press releases. Actually, she said slowly, there is something. The playground. The swings are busted, have been for months. The kids miss them. If your company could handle that, it'd mean a lot. Logan looked surprised she'd asked for anything at all. Consider it done, he said. I'll send a crew this week. Thank you. He nodded and went to collect Sophie, who complained loudly about leaving her new friend. Their dramatic goodbye, complete with promises to play tomorrow, made both adults smile despite everything. After they left, Naomi returned to her rounds, mind snagging on the unexpected layers of the morning. Logan wasn't what she'd assumed. He didn't ignore her like she was invisible. He listened, really listened. That alone was rare. The week blurred past in its usual haze of exhaustion. On Friday, Naomi almost dropped her rag when she saw Logan's SUV pull up outside, but this time he wasn't dropping Sophie off. He climbed out wearing jeans, a t-shirt, and work boots. He grabbed a toolbox from his trunk and headed straight for the rusted swing set. Miss Reynolds looked as puzzled as Naomi felt. Did he say he was coming to fix them personally? Naomi murmured, watching him test chains and inspect bolts. For 3 hours, Logan worked alone in the chilly air, tightening hardware, replacing chains, sanding rough edges. No staff, no hired crew, just him. Naomi kept finding excuses to pass the window, surprised every time she saw him, still there. By mid-afternoon, the swings were ready. Logan tested each one himself, awkwardly perched while he rocked back and forth to make sure they held real weight. When outdoor time started, kids' delighted shrieks washed over the playground. Naomi stepped outside as he packed up his tools. You didn't have to do that yourself, she said. He wiped sweat from his forehead with his forearm. I know, but sometimes you need to do something with your own hands. Well, thank you. The kids are over the moon. That's the point, he said. How's Micah? He seemed under the weather earlier this week. He's hanging in there. We've got a doctor's appointment next week. Logan nodded, clearly swallowing questions he wanted to ask but respected enough not to voice. Naomi appreciated that restraint more than she could explain. As if summoned, Micah barreled over, hugging her knees. Mama, I flew so high. I saw, she said, ruffling his curls. You were soaring. Logan smiled down at him. You're brave, kiddo. Micah ducked behind Naomi's leg, shy. For a moment, it felt oddly normal. Two parents chatting while their kids played, worlds not so distant. After Logan left, Naomi tried to focus on cleaning, but her body was running on fumes. She'd barely slept in days. During the last classroom wipe-down, The room tilted. 1 second she was upright, the next, her knees buckled. She grabbed a chair to keep from collapsing. Stars danced across her vision, nausea rolling through her. "Naomi," Miss Reynolds called, voice distant. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she lied, just stood up too fast. "When did you last eat?" Naomi searched her foggy memory. "Yesterday morning, maybe?" Time had blurred into a loop of work, worry, and caffeine. Food always came second to Micah's needs. Miss Reynolds guided her firmly to a chair. "Sit. I'm grabbing juice and crackers." "I can't take the kids' snacks," Naomi protested weakly. "They won't miss a few crackers and a juice box," Miss Reynolds said. "Sit." Naomi obeyed, hating how fragile she felt. If she collapsed at work, she could lose everything. That night, after her shift at Riverside, Naomi trudged home at dawn. Micah slept at Mrs. Alvarez's apartment down the hall, and Naomi had an hour before she needed to collect him and head back to daycare. She collapsed onto her mattress, still in her scrubs, shoes on, and fell asleep instantly, dreams haunted by aisles of unreachable formula, disapproving stares, and Micah's cough echoing down endless corridors. Her alarm yanked her awake. She felt like she hadn't slept at all. Across town, Logan sat in his office after midnight, sleepless. He kept seeing Naomi sway at the daycare, hearing Ms. Reynolds mention her near collapse like it was a small anecdote. It gnawed at him. On impulse, he opened his laptop. He typed Naomi Carter fundraiser into the search bar. Guilt prickling. Was this an invasion? Maybe, but concern pushed him. A page appeared almost instantly. A crowdfunding campaign started 8 months earlier. His heart lurched at the headline. "Help save little Micah Carter." A photo showed Naomi in a hospital chair, cradling a much smaller Micah tangled in wires and monitors. The description explained his rare genetic disorder, the staggering cost of ongoing treatment, and an eventual specialized surgery. The goal was $50,000. The total raised, $867. Logan stared, chest tight. The cough, the fever, Naomi's 2 jobs, her bone-deep exhaustion, it all snapped into place. She wasn't just scraping by, she was trying to keep her child alive. His mind flashed to Julia. Same diagnosis, same terrifying vocabulary, but with every resource at their disposal. And still, he'd lost her. This time was different. Micah's fight wasn't over. Logan actually had the power to change something, if Naomi would let him. But she'd made her boundaries crystal clear. She'd rather break herself in half than accept charity. Pride both impressed and infuriated him. He stared at the donate button a long moment, then closed the laptop. Whatever he did had to be careful. As dawn painted the horizon pink and gold, both Naomi and Logan headed into another day, their lives orbiting the same city. The grocery line had been chance, the daycare coincidence. What came next would be deliberate choice, with consequences. 2 days after finding the fundraiser, Logan sat across from his legal advisor, Marcus Webb, in his glass-walled office. The city skyline glittered behind them, but Logan's attention stayed locked on the numbers printed on Naomi's fundraising page. "I want to help her," Logan said, pen tapping nervously. "Those medical costs are manageable for me, and that kid needs treatment now." Marcus, cautious and silver-haired, folded his hands. "I understand, but unsolicited large gifts can become legal landmines. Charity turns into lawsuits faster than you'd believe, especially with a documented history of declined help." Logan grimaced. "So what, I just do nothing? Let a child suffer because paperwork is scary? I'm saying, proceed carefully, Marcus replied. Document everything. Logan dismissed him with a nod, still frustrated but hearing the warning. Yet Micah's hollow cough and Naomi's hollow eyes wouldn't leave his thoughts. He hadn't been able to save Julia. Maybe helping this family would make that loss mean something. Meanwhile, Naomi's stability crumbled. She came home from Riverside one morning to find a blinding orange notice taped to her apartment door. Eviction, 30 days. Her landlord claimed she was behind, though she knew every payment had been scraped together on time. She snatched the paper down, pulse racing, scanning the hallway to see if anyone had witnessed her. Shame, hands shaking. She unlocked the door. Inside, Micah played with toy cars while Mrs. Alvarez, soft-spoken and kind, sat knitting on the worn couch. "Morning, mija," Mrs. Alvarez said gently. "He's been good, like always." "Thank you," Naomi replied, voice tight. She paid the older woman the $5 they'd agreed on, too little for overnight care, but Mrs. Alvarez never complained. She understood hard luck. After her neighbor left, Naomi slid onto the floor beside Micah. "Hey, champ, you have fun?" He nodded solemnly. "Cars go vroom." "They sure do." She kissed his hair, heart twisting. "How did you explain we might lose our home to a 3-year-old? There was no time to sit with the panic. She had to get him ready for daycare and herself into clean clothes. Moving on autopilot, she shoved the eviction notice into a drawer where Micah's curious hands wouldn't find it. At Bright Horizons, she plastered on a smile, cleaning as usual, insisting she felt better when Ms. Reynolds checked in. "Just low blood sugar," she lied, "nothing serious." But everything felt life and death now. That night, lying awake beside Micah, she broke. She opened the fundraiser app, staring at the pathetically small total, $887. It might as well have been $8. With trembling fingers, she typed an update. "Micah's condition is getting worse. We need treatment soon. Any help means everything, God bless." She hit post before doubt could stop her, then immediately felt nauseous. Begging strangers online. Was this what survival looked like now? 3 days later. Logan decided he'd waited long enough. He believed he'd found a clever workaround. He'd donate anonymously through a shell foundation, so Naomi couldn't refuse. The money would simply appear, no direct tie to him. Using one of his small holding companies, he transferred $49,000 to the fundraiser, bringing it just under the target. He felt oddly satisfied when the transaction cleared. Problem handled, he thought. Naomi was at work when her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, emails, notification pings. Confused, she checked the fundraising app and felt the world tilt. The total had jumped. A single donor, Clearwater Health Foundation, had given $49,000. Her fingers went numb. This had to be a mistake. Or worse, a scam. She'd heard of fake donations that vanished when you tried to withdraw them. Panic spiked. She called the platform's support line, voice shaking. "Is this real?" "We're reviewing it," the rep said. "Large anonymous contributions can be fraudulent. We've temporarily frozen your account while we verify." "Frozen? But my son needs treatment now." "It's for your protection," the rep insisted. "We'll resolve it as soon as we can." Naomi hung up, mind racing. She Googled Clearwater Health Foundation. Nothing. No website, no address, nothing. A cold suspicion began to form. This wasn't random generosity. It was targeted. Someone with serious money. Someone who knew about Micah. Someone who didn't understand what that kind of donation would trigger. Her thoughts jumped immediately to Logan, the suit, the guilt, the offer to help. Who else could it be? Within an hour, After a tense conversation with a sympathetic contact at the bank where she'd once begged for a loan, she confirmed what she already suspected. The money could be traced back to Hayes Ventures, Logan's company. Fury replaced fear. She left work early, telling Miss Reynolds there was an emergency. Taking the bus downtown, she stepped into a building unlike anything she'd ever entered. Marble floors, glass walls, quiet air that smelled expensive. The security guard moved to stop her. "I need to see Logan Hayes," she said, voice trembling with rage. "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him Naomi Carter is here," she said. "He'll see me." Something in her eyes persuaded the guard to make a call. Minutes later, Naomi rode a keycard elevator up to the executive floor, anger building with every ding. Logan's office was enormous, overlooking the city. He rose when she stepped inside, surprise flashing across his face. "Naomi, Why would you humiliate me like that?" she demanded, voice sharp. "Do you have any clue what you've done?" "I was trying to help," he said. "By making me look like a scammer," she shot back. The platform froze everything. "My son needs treatment, and now I can't access a cent because you decided to play hero." Logan's face drained of color. "They froze the account?" "Of course they did," she snapped. "You think you can just throw money at problems? You saw me at my lowest and decided I needed saving. I don't need a savior. I need people to see me as a person." Each word hit him like a blow. "I do see you," he said quietly. "That's why I stayed anonymous. So you wouldn't feel, what, obligated, grateful?" Naomi's eyes burned. "You made a decision about my life without asking. You took control from me. You don't get to do that, no matter how big your bank account is." Logan stayed very still, something shifting behind his eyes. "My wife had the same condition Micah has," he said softly. Naomi's anger faltered. "What?" "She died 3 years ago, just before Sophie turned 4, he continued. "We had every resource. Specialists, trials, the best facilities, and it still wasn't enough. I couldn't save her. When I heard Micah cough, I recognized it. I thought, maybe I could do for your son what I couldn't for her. The air between them changed." Naomi's fury didn't vanish, but it tangled with empathy and exhaustion. "I'm sorry about your wife," she said, voice quiet. "Truly, but that doesn't give you the right to decide things for us." "You're right," he said immediately. "I overstepped. I should have talked to you, asked what you wanted." He moved around the desk, keeping a respectful distance. "Let me fix this. I'll call the platform, verify everything, get the account unfrozen." "And then what?" Naomi asked. "I just accept the money and smile?" "No," he said. "Then we put it in writing, not as charity, as a loan, if that feels better. Clear terms, legal paperwork, repayment only if you ever can. Everything above board, nothing hidden, your call." Naomi studied him, searching for condescension and finding only sincerity and grief. Her shoulders sagged under the weight of too many sleepless nights and impossible decisions. "Why do you care this much?" she whispered. "You don't know us." "Because I know what helpless feels like," he answered. "I know what it's like to watch someone you love fight a disease that doesn't care how much money you have. I couldn't change that before. Maybe now I can." Silence settled, broken only by the muffled city sounds below. Naomi closed her eyes, pride battling with desperation. When she opened them, her voice was rough. "Fine, make it legal, make it a loan. I want everything in writing, no tricks." "Of course," Logan said, relief flickering across his face. "I'll have my attorneys draft it, Fair terms, you'll review everything." Naomi took a breath. "And one more thing," she added. "Stop trying to save me. If you want to help, treat me like a partner." "Deal," he said, extending his hand. After a long beat, she shook it. Leaving his office, Naomi felt wrung out but oddly lighter. The anger had burned away some of the shame. His confession about Julia had reshaped her understanding of his motives. Maybe he wasn't just a wealthy man chasing redemption through checkbooks. Maybe he was simply another parent who knew loss too well. That didn't excuse the way he'd gone about things, but it made him human instead of a symbol. The next morning, Naomi walked Micah into the children's hospital for a consultation with a specialist whose rates had finally become reachable. Sunlight glanced off her scuffed sneakers, the same pair she'd patched up for 2 years. But her chin was high. Micah clutched her hand, wide-eyed but excited by the colorful murals. Whatever happened next, he was finally getting the care he needed. Logan watched from his car in the parking lot, having followed at a respectful distance to make sure they arrived safely. He didn't approach. She'd set her boundaries, and he'd chosen to honor them. But seeing Micah skip beside Naomi, animated despite everything, gave him something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, not for himself exactly, but for them. Sometimes that was enough. 6 weeks later, Micah's improvement was undeniable. Early treatments were working better than expected, his cough easing, his energy returning. Doctors used careful words like encouraging and responding well. Logan visited occasionally under the guise of checking paperwork, but mostly to witness Micah thriving. Sophie proudly called Micah "my little brother," and their bond only deepened. Meanwhile, whispers and camera flashes began circling Logan's life. So he stood before microphones at a packed press conference. Face steady. "I'm here to address rumors about my connection with Naomi Carter. The truth is, Carter's son has a rare condition requiring costly care," Logan announced. "Through my foundation, we created a medical grant to cover treatment. Our connection is strictly philanthropic and professional. No romance, no scandal, just responsibility." He walked reporters through the grant's terms, displayed signed documents, and took every question calmly. At first, headlines softened. Then the angle twisted, tragedy and optics. Poor single mother, rich benefactor, applause for Logan. Pity poured over Naomi. Donations flooded Micah's campaign, tripling the target within days. The internet adored redemption arcs, especially ones with a brave child and a photogenic CEO. Naomi, watching counters climb, felt bitterness. "I asked for respect," she told Logan, "not pity." "I know," he said quietly. "I meant well. Sometimes help lands like a hammer," she replied. That night, an unknown number texted, "You have no idea who you're crossing. Leave him alone, or everything you love vanishes." She stared at the message. Fear crawling. Across the street, a black sedan idled, headlights blinking once before going dark. Someone was out there. Someone wanted her frightened, and it was working. Naomi hugged Micah and stepped away from the window. Whatever this was, it eclipsed tabloid noise. This was engineered intimidation, designed to isolate her, cast doubt, and threaten the one thing she couldn't lose. Fighting shadows felt impossible. How do you confront a nameless enemy? She deleted the text with shaking fingers, as if erasing pixels could erase danger. The car remained, a shape in the sodium glow. "Mama's scared," Micah whispered. She forced a smile. "Nobody, bedtime." She tucked him in, heart pounding. She barely slept. Every hallway footstep jolted her. Every passing engine tightened her chest. She kept one hand on Micah's back all night, as if touch could build a shield against whatever waited outside. 2 evenings later, back from interviewing at another elder care facility to replace the daycare job she'd lost, Naomi stepped off the bus. The same black sedan idled curbside. Headlights flashed once, slow, intentional. And then it rolled away. Panic surged. This wasn't coincidence. Someone tracked her routes, counted her steps, timed her days. Who and why? She didn't know that Logan's security unit had already noticed and had started quietly circling her block. Daniel Ross, head of Hayes Venture Security, convened an unscheduled briefing. "Sir, we've got active surveillance on Ms. Carter," he reported. "Competent tail, careful patterns, not random. They know their craft, but not as well as they think." Logan's jaw tightened. "Can we ID?" "Working it," Daniel said. "We're running plates. This level of coordination isn't cheap." "Victoria," Logan answered, the name tasting bitter. "My guess, motive and money. Put people on Naomi's building around the clock." "Copy," Daniel said. "We'll cover entrances, alleys, the bus stop. We'll also sweep for cameras and trackers." Logan stared at the city. Anger banked like coals. Victoria Lane had crossed too many lines. It was time to end this. The next day, Victoria arrived unannounced, breezing past reception as if old privileges still applied. Tailored suit, flawless hair, everything curated. She slid into a chair without invitation. "Logan, darling, your charity project is getting unflattering press." "What do you want, Victoria?" he asked. Voice flat. "To make sure you aren't torpedoing your company," she purred. "The board must be concerned." "The board is satisfied," he said, "and my philanthropy isn't your concern." Her smile sharpened. "Everything about you concerns me. History binds us. We have a past," he corrected, "not a present." She rose, smoothing her skirt. "Be careful. Women like her are strategic. She sees dollar signs. Leave," he said. "I'm protecting you from a mistake," she persisted. "That woman and her sick child, anchors." He stood, voice cold and deadly quiet. "Get out, Victoria, now, or I'll have you escorted." For a beat, malice flashed. "You'll regret this," she hissed. He called Daniel the moment her heels clicked away. "She's escalating. I want everything. Payments, calls, burner phones. Peel it back." "Already in motion," Daniel said. Meanwhile, Naomi's crisis deepened where it hurt most. Micah's health. Complications blindsided them. Early protocols had worked, then something shifted. An unanticipated reaction, urgent and unforgiving. "He needs surgery within 2 weeks," said Dr. Priya Patel, Micah's lead specialist. "Without it, we risk losing ground we fought hard to gain." Naomi gripped the edge of the consult table. $75,000? The number echoed like a door slam. "The fundraiser and loan covered the first phase. I don't have this." Dr. Patel's voice softened. "Take time, explore options, but soon." Options? Another internet plea? Beg Logan for more? Drowning in obligation? Watch her child deteriorate? That evening, Naomi stepped into Miller's pawn. Fluorescent lights. Buzzing! She set a velvet box on the glass, heart cracking like ice. Her wedding ring. Michael's grandmother's diamond on a thin gold band, the last piece of him she could hold. Selling it felt like erasing a page of their story. The pawnbroker, heavyset, pragmatic, peered through his loupe. "Best I can do is $1,200, he said. "It's worth more," Naomi whispered. "To you, sure, this is market. $1,200 wouldn't touch surgery costs, but it would float rent and groceries. Buy breathing room. "I'll take it," she said. She left with cash and an ache she couldn't swallow. Michael would have told her to choose life every time. Knowing didn't dull the pain. A block away, a photographer lifted a camera, angling for the cruelest shot. He was freelance, hired to shadow Naomi. An easy paycheck, he told himself. He framed her tears and the pawn ticket, thirsty for narrative. Daniel stepped into his line. Steady as a wall. "Hand over the camera," Daniel said. The paparazzo scoffed. Public sidewalk. 2 more security agents flanked him. The bravado flickered. "This is harassment." "No," Daniel said evenly. "This is your last warning. Delete every file and walk. And tell your employer someone's watching the watchers." Reluctantly, the man scrubbed his card and backed off. Still, he texted a number saved as V. "They've got protection on her," then disappeared into traffic. By morning, tabloids detonated with lies. "CEO's mistress pawns his gifts," screamed one headline. They claimed Naomi liquidated Logan's jewelry, spinning her into a caricature, conniving, grasping, disposable. None of it was true, but truth seldom weighed as much as spectacle. Logan saw it before breakfast and burned. He grabbed his coat. "Clear my calendar," he told his assistant. 20 minutes later, he strode into Victoria's sleek office tower. Security recognized him. Old access still echoed. He didn't wait to be announced. He slammed the paper onto her glass desk. "You crossed the line," he said, voice quiet and lethal. "It ends today." Victoria glanced at the headline. "Unfazed." "I don't control the press." "You pay the pipeline," he replied. "We have the photographer. We know about the CPS call. We have bank transfers, masked through shells, routed to burners. Phone logs tying you to that tabloid editor. Emails outlining angles. Shall I keep going?" For the first time, her certainty trembled. "You're bluffing." "Test me," he said. "I will bury you with civil suits and referrals to prosecutors. Stalking, harassment, defamation, false reporting. You will spend years explaining yourself to judges." She stood, veneer cracking. "You're choosing her over me. She's never asked me for anything," he said. "You've tried to control me for 3 years. We're finished. Touch Naomi or Micah again, and I'll end your career." He left, adrenaline buzzing. Outside, he called legal. "File everything." By nightfall, Victoria Lane received formal notice. Defamation, harassment, conspiracy around a false CPS report. The case packet was thick. Financials, timestamps, affidavits. Legal storms moved slowly, but thunderheads had gathered overhead. Naomi, meanwhile, went to ground. The pawnshop photos cracked something inside. She stopped answering, focused on shifts and survival. The hospital's deadline marched closer. She worked, saved pennies, and came home too tired to cry. Sophie noticed Micah's absence at Bright Horizons immediately. "Where's Micah?" she asked Logan every morning. "When's he coming back?" Each question pinched. "Soon," Logan promised. "He's taking a break." "He's my little brother," she said fiercely. The phrase sparked an idea. "Want to draw him something?" he asked. "A picture to make him brave?" Sophie lit up. "Yes." That afternoon, she drew 2 families holding hands, labeled carefully, Dad, me, Micah, Micah's mom. On top were the same, I love you. Logan swallowed hard. Kids saw clean lines where adults saw knots. "Let's mail it," he said. Sophie dictated a note. "Dear Micah, I miss you. You're my brother forever. Love, Sophie." He posted it, hoping paper could cross barricades. 3 days later, Naomi held the drawing. Micah glowed, parading it around the apartment. My sister sent it, he told everyone. Naomi felt a seam give way. Fear softening, pride loosening. Kindness working where arguments failed. She dialed Logan. He answered instantly. Naomi, relief bled into his voice. "Are you okay?" "Not really," she admitted. "But Sophie's drawing, thank you." "Her idea," he said. "She misses him. He misses her too." Naomi inhaled. "Logan, I need to tell you something. Micah needs emergency surgery. $75,000. I tried to cover it alone. I even sold my wedding ring. It's not enough." Silence, then gentleness. "Why didn't you call?" "Because needing help all the time feels like failing." "Needing help is human," he said. "Then I'm asking officially, partner, borrower, whatever label works, help me save my son." "You don't have to ask twice," he said. "It's done. We'll sort paperwork later." Logan had been sketching something larger. That night, he convened his foundation's board. "I want a dedicated program for single parents facing catastrophic pediatric costs. We'll call it the Micah and Sophie Foundation. Two kids who reminded me why money must serve people." "Funding?" a director asked. $50 million to start," Logan said. "And I want Naomi Carter as community outreach lead. She knows this battlefield. Optics, someone hedged. It'll look like favoritism." "It'll look like what it is, respect for lived expertise," he replied. The board voted yes. Logan left energized, then took another step. He met the daycare board. "I'll make a significant gift," he said. "On one condition, rehire Naomi as community outreach coordinator. You fired her over gossip. Fix it." They squirmed. Everyone remembered the whisper campaign. "Mr. Hayes, no hedging," he said. "She's an asset. Parents trusted her. Kids adored her. Do the right thing." 2 days later, Ms. Reynolds called Naomi with apologies and an offer. Not janitorial, outreach. Better salary, steady hours, childcare intact. Naomi said yes through tears. For the first time in months, the future didn't feel like cliff edge and wind. Still, Logan wasn't finished reframing the narrative. He organized a televised fundraiser to launch the new foundation. Naomi hesitated. Cameras still meant ambush in her bones. But Logan promised. "This time you aren't a prop. You're a partner." Backstage, Naomi trembled in a consignment shop gown that fit like hope. "You look strong," Logan said. "I feel terrified," she admitted. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," he answered. He offered his arm. "Ready." They stepped into light together. Applause thinned to silence as Logan reached the microphone. "We're launching a fund for families facing medical nightmares," he said. "But this began with a woman who taught me that dignity matters more than dollars." He gestured to Naomi. "She didn't ask for rescue. She demanded respect." "I've measured success in revenue and stock charts," he continued. "She taught me that real wealth is courage, the grit to ask for help and the grace to give it." He turned to her. "Naomi, I'm honored to stand beside you." The room erupted. Naomi felt something lift, the old weight of shame loosening like a knot untied. She hadn't planned to speak, but a voice rose in her chest anyway. She stepped forward, hands steadying at the podium. "Thank you for seeing me," she said simply. "That's what everybody wants, to be seen as people, not problems." The clip went viral within hours. Respect Naomi. Trend lines spiraled upward, not with pity this time, but recognition. Donations poured into the foundation from parents, nurses, neighbors, People who understood impossible arithmetic between rent and medicine. Behind the scenes, Logan's lawyers tightened nets around Victoria, digging unearthed older crimes she'd hoped remained buried. They found embezzled research grants, funds siphoned from medical nonprofits, including a hospital connected to Micah's care, paper trails, altered entries, offshore hops, stretched nearly a decade. The evidence sang in one clear, ugly key. Logan scheduled a private meeting. Victoria arrived with counsel, defiant but tight around the eyes. "You could have helped," he said, sliding files across. "This was meant for children like Micah. You stole it. Choose restitution or ruin." "You can't prove—" "We already did," he said. "Turn it back, confess. Face consequences like an adult. Or I deliver this to prosecutors and the press simultaneously." Her stare curdled. "I loved you." "You loved leverage," he replied. 2 days later, police cuffed Victoria Lane. Charges stacked: embezzlement, fraud, harassment. Cameras devoured the perp walk she'd once used to orchestrate others' humiliation. Courts would take years, but accountability had finally found her door. In the hospital lounge where Micah recovered post-surgery, Naomi watched the news, feelings mixed: relief, sorrow, clarity. Logan hadn't wielded power to control her. He'd used it to protect. That difference mattered, the line between domination and solidarity. Micah's operation succeeded beyond hopes. Monitors steadied. Breath came easier. Dr. Patel's optimism turned from cautious to genuine. Naomi texted Logan, "Thank you for helping when I couldn't, for seeing me, for fighting beside me." He replied almost instantly, "You were always strong. You just needed someone next to you, not over you." Naomi cried, this time relief, not despair. The battle hadn't ended, but she wasn't alone in the fight anymore. Weeks flew. Micah ran without coughing, played without pausing to clutch his chest. The Micah and Sophie Foundation took shape. Naomi discovered her voice, advocacy threaded with lived experience, sharper than any white paper or panel statistic. She understood the trade-offs, choosing between insulin and rent, transit passes and antibiotics, because she'd carried them. One afternoon, sorting mail in her new 2-bedroom, safe and clean, she found an envelope with a familiar military unit designation. Addressed to Logan, misdelivered to her building, the number off by 1. She knew she should forward it unopened, but curiosity pushed. Inside, a thank you letter for supporting the Fallen Soldiers Family Fund with a recipient list attached. Midway down, Naomi froze at her own name. Naomi Carter, widow of Sergeant Michael Carter, $5,000 grant for housing and prenatal care 5 years earlier. She remembered the lifeline that had arrived anonymously when fear filled every corner. She'd assumed it was standard survivor benefits. It wasn't. It had been Logan's quiet generosity, long before they met. Their grocery line collision wasn't the first thread, just where the weave became visible. She called him, breathless. "Can we meet now?" Half an hour later, they sat in a coffee shop, letter between them. Logan read shock, then wonder moving across his face. "I had no idea," he said. "Donations stay anonymous by design." "You helped me before you knew me," Naomi whispered. "You kept me and Micah afloat when everything collapsed." Logan's hands trembled. "I give to many funds. I never see recipient names. This feels like providence." They sat quiet, humbled by the strange geometry, lines crossing years, looping loss into meaning. "There's more," Logan said, pulling up an email. Dr. Patel explained Micah's protocol traces back to research funded during my wife's case. When Julia was dying, I threw everything at the science. Our trials failed for us, but the data became a foundation. Without it, Micah's team wouldn't have the map they're using. His voice broke. Julia saved him. Naomi swayed with the realization. Your wife's suffering helped build Micah's cure. Yes, Logan said. That doesn't lessen the grief, but it transforms it. He reached across the table. Maybe none of this was random. Naomi held his hand, feeling the weight and wonder. Thank you, for then, for now, for turning grief into fuel. He nodded, eyes wet. Thank you for teaching me what help should look like. A month later, the Micah and Sophie Foundation launched officially at the hospital where Micah had healed. Dr. Patel cut a ribbon on a new pediatric wing. Coverage was expansive, but framed accurately. Community, dignity, shared responsibility. Naomi spoke, voice resonant. Last year, I stood in a grocery checkout unable to cover formula. I thought that moment was about poverty. It was about something deeper, how we measure worth and how we choose to see each other. This foundation says no parent should choose between medicine and rent. No child's future should depend on luck or indulgence. We're here to close the gap with respect, not pity. Applause rolled through the atrium like tide. And I learned accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. We aren't meant to survive alone. She honored Julia's legacy and Michael's service, stitching their names into the foundation's story, a tapestry of grief remade as kindness. Later, Naomi and Logan watched workers expand Bright Horizons playground, the same spot where he'd once replaced chains and sanded rust. I have something, Logan said, producing a small box. Naomi opened it and forgot to breathe. Her wedding ring, Michael's ring, nestled inside. How? I traced it, he said. Bought it back. It belongs with you. She slid it on, tears bright. You didn't have to. Some things are bigger than money, he said. She hugged him hard, gratitude and memory colliding. Thank you for seeing me that day, for fighting when I couldn't, for making something beautiful from wreckage. He hugged back, eyes damp. You made it beautiful. I just cleared debris. Sunset gilded the city. Sophie and Micah sprinted across the yard, laughter skimming the warm air. My brother, Sophie shouted, grabbing Micah's hand as they scrambled up the slide. Naomi and Logan watched, companionable and quiet. They weren't a love story, not that kind. They were something steadier. Mutual respect, shared purpose, an agreement to stand shoulder to shoulder. Sometimes that lasted longer than heat. Sometimes that built hospitals. Sometimes that changed towns. Months slid into a year. The foundation assisted hundreds of families, expanded into 4 cities, and seeded copycat efforts nationwide. Naomi's outreach teams grew under her leadership. Her name began appearing on policy panels and in op-eds. One evening, Logan called. There's a gala next month, Women Who Inspire Change. They want to honor you. Will you come? Naomi hesitated. Chandeliers and flashbulbs still felt dangerous. I'm not sure I belong. You already do, he said. So she stood backstage again. Navy gown borrowed from the same consignment rack, hands trembling. Logan introduced her. Tonight, we honor someone who reminded me that courage is getting up to fight when the world stacks the deck. Naomi Carter lost her husband to war, nearly lost her son to illness, and met cruelty with dignity. She didn't want rescue, she wanted respect. She taught us what resilience actually looks like. Applause surged. Naomi walked into light. A year ago, I'd have run, she admitted at the microphone. Now I know belonging isn't wealth, it's shared humanity. We've all needed help. We all matter. My story is just one version of everyone's story. The standing ovation felt less like adoration than affirmation. Afterward, an older woman approached, face flushed with recognition. Naomi knew her immediately. The cashier from Harrell's The Day Dignity felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. "I'm ashamed of how I treated you," the woman said. "I was tired, short-tempered, unkind. You deserved better." Naomi listened, then nodded gently. "We all have days we aren't proud of. What matters is seeing it and choosing differently." "I see you now," the woman whispered, eyes wet. "I'm sorry I didn't then." They hugged briefly, two people reaching across a painful moment toward grace. Both walked away crying and smiling. Lighter for the exchange. The next year, the foundation opened its first dedicated pediatric wing. Media packed the lobby, but the moment that mattered most was small. Micah, healthy and curious, looked up at Naomi as she cut the ribbon. "Why are they clapping?" he asked. "Because we're helping other kids feel better," she said. "Like you did." "That's good," he announced. 4-year-old wisdom, clear as water. Naomi kissed his hair, gratitude rising like sunlight in her chest. After speeches and photos, Micah bolted toward Sophie, who'd fidgeted through boring adult stuff. The kids resumed their elaborate pretend game with heroic doctors, brave astronauts, and a suspiciously familiar playground slide. Logan approached with a small, wrapped gift. "From Micah," he said, smiling. Inside, a crayon drawing of a formula can with a heart, labeled carefully. "So you don't forget where we began." Naomi laughed through tears. "He remembers the store." Sophie told him the legend, Logan said. "It's canon now, their origin story, milk, and a line that wasn't the end." "Are we friends?" Naomi asked. "I think we're family," he answered. "Not traditional, but real. Forged in crisis, tempered by choice, held by purpose. Over 18 months, they'd built something difficult and durable. No replacements for people they'd lost, just a new kind of belonging." As the day faded, Logan walked Naomi and Micah to their car. "When I saw you in that checkout," he said softly, "I thought I was supposed to save you. Turns out, you saved me. You showed me what money is for. You gave me back purpose." Naomi smiled. "We saved each other. That's what happens when we're seen as people, not problems." They waved goodbye, no fanfare, just quiet understanding. 5 years later, Harrell's grocery renovated. A bronze plaque appeared beside Lane 6, in memory of where kindness began. Micah and Sophie Foundation, established 2024, serving families, honoring dignity, celebrating humanity. The store launched an anonymous pay program. Cashiers could quietly tag an order. Paid forward. No speeches, no spotlights. One afternoon, a young mom came up short for formula. "Don't worry," the cashier said gently. "Someone already covered it." "Who?" "That's not the point." The cashier smiled. "Let it give you hope, then pass it on when you can." She walked out with formula and tears, unaware of the chain she'd joined, link after link, all the way back to another mother under merciless lights. Years unfurled. Micah grew into a compassionate teen who talked about medicine and fairness. Sophie found her voice in advocacy, using privilege like a lever. They were siblings in everything except blood, and maybe that too in some mysterious way. Naomi became a national voice for pediatric access, consulting with hospitals and legislators without letting bureaucracy flatten real people into charts. Logan expanded his philanthropy, building coalitions instead of monuments, measuring success in relieved breaths, not headlines. Sometimes, late at night, Naomi unfolded Micah's old drawing, the milk can with the heart, and remembered that checkout line she'd once mistaken for an ending. It had been a threshold. On the other side, a movement. One winter, the foundation passed the 1,000 families mark. An anchor on the evening news tried to summarize the impact. Logan deflected credit. "It's never one person," he said. "It's a community choosing to see and to act." A mother from Ohio hugged Naomi at a clinic opening. "I was you," she whispered, counting coins, choosing between gas and antibiotics. "This program caught us. Thank you for letting me keep my dignity." Naomi squeezed her hand. Awards came and went. Buildings gained names. Spreadsheets filled with outcomes. The heartbeat of it all remained intimate and ordinary. Volunteers brewing coffee in waiting rooms. Social workers unraveling billing nightmares. A nurse kneeling to tie a child's shoe. When skeptics demanded proof that kindness mattered, Naomi pointed to the data and then to the faces. "We track metrics," she'd say. "But the story is simpler. Fewer funerals, more birthdays. That's what success looks like." On a spring afternoon, Naomi and Logan toured a clinic construction site. "Remember when I thought help meant writing bigger checks?" he asked. "You taught me to ask who holds the pen." Naomi grinned. "Preferably the person closest to the need." They'd learned to build with, not for, communities. Decision tables had new chairs, parents, nurses, translators, bus drivers, cafeteria staff. The best solutions were always local, specific, and sometimes came with a crock-pot recipe attached. A journalist once pressed Naomi, "What changed your life more, money or respect?" She answered without hesitation. "Respect. Money paid bills. Respect restored my voice." The quote lived on coffee mugs and conference slides, but she meant it every time. Eventually, Victoria's trials ended. Verdicts fell like doors closing. Guilty on multiple counts. She faced prison, restitution, and public apology. Naomi felt complicated relief, justice without triumph. "I don't celebrate cages," she said. "I celebrate boundaries finally holding." Micah and Sophie visited the pediatric wing to deliver storybooks. A little boy asked Sophie, "Are you famous?" She laughed. "Only to him," she said, pointing at Micah, who rolled his eyes and grinned. Fame wasn't the point. Friendship was. On the foundation's anniversary, former grantees sent postcards. First day of kindergarten photos. Cast-off inhalers collected in a shoebox, a signed soccer ball smudged with dirt and joy. Nothing measured impact like a grass-stained victory. Whoop! Naomi kept a bulletin board above her desk. A collage of small survivals. Appointment stickers. Thank you scribbles. A cafeteria menu circled around banana pudding. People teased her about the pudding. That day, she'd say, a mom finally ate lunch. One morning, a storm knocked out power at a clinic. Staff formed a human chain to move kids' equipment safely. Logan arrived with generators. Naomi arrived with blankets and cocoa. Different tools, same mission, keep fear small. A policy win finally capped out-of-pocket pediatric costs statewide. Reporters asked who deserved credit. The parents, Naomi said. They wouldn't stop telling the truth. Logan nodded beside her, happy to be one voice among many. "Do you ever miss the person you were before?" Logan asked once. Naomi thought about the woman in the checkout line. Exhausted, furious, unbowed. "I carry her," she said. "She keeps me honest. She reminds me what matters." On a quiet evening, Logan admitted something he'd never said aloud. There was a long time I thought my life ended with Julia. Turns out it transformed. That's her legacy, not death, direction. Naomi squeezed his shoulder. We all carry our dead differently, she said softly. You've learned to build with yours. He smiled, the kind that moved slowly. You helped me learn. We helped each other, she said. Truth balanced like a bridge. 5 summers later, Harrell's plaque had fingerprints from people who touched it like a charm. Some days, flowers appeared beneath it, no card attached. Other days, a stranger quietly paid a stranger's balance, and no one said a word. A documentary crew asked Naomi for a final line. She looked into the lens. Kindness isn't extra, it's infrastructure. If we build it well, fewer people fall through. Later, she and Logan watched the premiere, tissues handy. The film ended with Sophie and Micah racing across that playground, laughter braiding with wind. The credits rolled over their crayon drawing, 2 families holding hands. Viewers stood up sniffling, then pulled phones to donate or sign up. Impact rippled. Workplace giving, payroll roundups, civic clubs sponsoring clinic days, churches swapping shame for support, barbershops collecting bus vouchers, an auto shop offering free brake jobs for parents heading to hospital appointments. Everyone had a lever. On an ordinary Tuesday, Naomi ducked into Harrell's for milk. Lane 6 was open. The cashier recognized her and nodded. Good to see you. You too, Naomi said. Ordinary moments felt like miracles when you remembered the before. At checkout, a teen behind Naomi nervously counted wrinkled bills, came up short, cheeks flaming. Naomi tapped the counter gently. Add it to mine, she told the cashier. The kid blinked. Why? Because someone did it for me, she said. Outside, Naomi texted Logan, just paid it forward. He replied with a heart and a bad milk pun. She snorted in the parking lot, shook her head, and tucked the phone away, smiling. Humor, like kindness, carried weight. A few weeks later, Naomi testified at a hearing about the hospital billing transparency. We don't need perfect systems, she said. We need navigable ones. Committee members leaned forward, pens stilled. Lived experience had a gravity that charts couldn't imitate. During Q&A, a lawmaker asked what kept her going. People, she answered. A mom who packed a go bag for 3 months because surprise bills scared her more than seizures. We can do better than that. Silence, then applause. On the foundation's 5th birthday, staff threw a potluck. Carmen brought empanadas. Miss Reynolds, now board chair, brought a sheet cake with lopsided lettering. Daniel showed up, out of uniform, still scanning exits out of habit. Plate piled high. They told origin stories, each remembering different details. The line, the ring, the drawing, the pawn shop, the press conference. Naomi raised a paper cup. To building longer tables, not taller fences. Cups clinked, someone yelled. To banana pudding! Near midnight, Naomi stood alone under string lights, listening to the hum of dishwashers and laughter. Logan joined her with a trash bag. Glamorous, he joked. She grinned. Impact rarely is. They cleaned in comfortable silence. Before leaving, Naomi paused at a bulletin board pinned with fresh postcards. In thick preschool letters, one read, "Thank you for making my mom smile again." Naomi touched the edge gently, eyes stinging. That's the metric, she whispered. The story that began under fluorescent checkout lights didn't end with a gala or a wing or a plaque. It kept unfolding in ordinary rooms where respect rearranged outcomes and help landed like solidarity, not shame. So when someone extends a hand in your darkest hour, is refusing strength, or another kind of suffering. If this moved you, tap like and subscribe for more true stories about dignity, resilience, and the unexpected ways lives intertwine. Lesson 1. Dignity matters as much as dollars. If you've lived long enough to watch the price of milk climb from pocket change to several dollars a gallon, you know what it feels like to count every bill at the checkout line. Many older Americans have stood where Naomi stood, palms sweating, heart pounding, wondering if the money in their wallet would stretch far enough. Some of you remember doing that while raising children in a small apartment, or after a layoff when you were too old to be hired easily but too young to retire. Her story reminds us that poverty is not a character flaw, it is a circumstance. Under those bright grocery lights, what hurt Naomi most was not the missing $4, but the sharp whispers behind her and the way people looked through her as if she were less than human. For those of us on fixed incomes, depending on Social Security or a modest pension, the fear of not having enough is all too familiar. The lesson is simple and deep. In every season of life, dignity matters as much as dollars. We may need help at times, but we still deserve a straight look in the eye, a calm tone, and the quiet respect we spent a lifetime earning. And when we see someone else struggling, we can remember how it feels and choose gentleness instead of judgment. Lesson 2. Real help is partnership, not pity. As we grow older, we learn the difference between someone who does a good deed for the photo and someone who shows up to roll up their sleeves. Logan started out like many well-off people do, thinking he could fix everything with his checkbook. But when he tried to cover Naomi's bill without understanding her pride, his help felt like a spotlight she never asked for. Many of you know that feeling. Maybe you were the one quietly slipping a casserole onto a neighbor's porch, or the widow in church who hated being pointed out from the pulpit. Naomi's firm no taught Logan a lesson many of us learned the hard way. The right kind of help asks, listens, and works with you. As elders, we also know how humbling it can be to accept help with groceries, rides, or medical decisions. It feels different when the person offering help says, "What works for you?" instead of, "Here's what you should do." When Logan showed up at the daycare in blue jeans and work boots to fix the swings himself, when he put their agreement in writing and called it a loan instead of charity, he moved from pity to partnership. For older folks, that rings true. We don't want to be anyone's project. We want someone walking beside us, not standing above us, and we can offer that same kind of thoughtful help to others. Lesson 3. Small moments can shape the legacy we leave. If you are in your late 60s or 70s, you probably measure life less by big headlines and more by the quiet choices that added up over decades. Raising children, staying married through hard seasons, helping a neighbor without keeping score. Naomi and Logan's story shows how one small, humiliating moment at a grocery store can ripple outward into something larger than anyone imagined. A refused $4 offer turned into a medical fund, then into a foundation, bearing the names of 2 children who played on a mended swing set. Older Americans understand legacy. We sit at kitchen tables and wonder what we're handing down besides knickknacks and photo albums. This story says that every time we choose respect over judgment, partnership over pride, and courage over silence, we help build a world where fewer parents stand at the register in fear. We may not all have millions to give, but we can offer a listening ear, a kind word, a ride to the doctor, or a quiet "I see you" to someone struggling. Those gestures may feel small in the moment, but they can change the course of a family's history. In the end, the greatest inheritance we leave to our children and grandchildren may not be money at all, but the habit of seeing every person, rich or poor, as worthy of help that honors their dignity. Friends, after hearing Naomi and Logan's story, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a season where you had to choose between keeping your pride and accepting help you really needed? How did you handle it? And what do you wish the people around you had understood about your situation? Share your experience or your advice in the comments so others can learn from your journey. And if you'd like more real, heart-deep stories about dignity, resilience, and everyday kindness, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us